cold. That's the first thing I registered. A bone-deep, marrow-sucking kind of cold that seemed to seep into my bones and claw at my insides. My teeth were chattering, and I vaguely noticed them clicking together as I tried to form some semblance of a thought. Then came the pain, a throbbing, insistent ache in my head that hammered with every beat of my racing heart. My hand instinctively went up to touch the source of the agony, and I recoiled at the slick warmth that met my finger blood. My hand was slick with it, dripping crimson onto the damp forest floor. Panic seized me then, clawing at my throat and constricting my lungs. Where was I? Why was I in the woods, alone, in the dead of night? My memories were like flickering candle flames, casting fleeting shadows upon a dark canvas. Images danced at the periphery of my consciousness. A dark blur, a scream, the glint of metal, a sharp sting. I tried to push myself up, but a wave of dizziness made me groan and sink back into the damp leaves. My vision swam, blurring the towering trees that formed a black canopy overhead. The air was thick with the smell of earth and decay, the rustle of creatures adding to my growing fear. Then a sound pierced the stillness, a faint, rhythmic crunching of leaves like someone approaching. My breath hitched. Was it another, them, whoever had done this to me? My heart hammered against my ribs, a trapped bird desperate for escape. But the figure that emerged from the trees wasn't the monster my mind had conjured. It was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, his face shadowed by the brim of a worn baseball cap. He wore a firefighter's jacket. Relief washed over me, so potent it took my breath away.
Hey there! Easy now. Don't try to move.
He knelt beside me, his face creased with concern as he inspected my head wound. It was worse than I thought, a jagged gash splitting the skin above my left temple.
Don't remember how you got here, do you? He asked. His voice soft.
I shook my head, feeling more tears welling up. No, nothing. It's all. He nodded, his lips pursed in thought.
Don't worry, you're safe now. I'm John. And I found you wandering in the woods. You fainted. Poor thing, you gave us quite a scare.
I croaked, my voice dry as straw.
My team and I were finishing up a training exercise nearby when we saw you. You looked pretty rough, so we called Sheriff Blake.
Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. But even as he spoke, a sliver of doubt wormed its way into my mind. John mentioned a team, yet I only saw him. And my memories, their absence was a gaping hole in my head, just like the gash above my temple. Why couldn't I remember anything? Like the fog of confusion swirled thicker, its tendrils tightening around my throat. My head throbbed and I closed my eyes, praying for clarity. But all I saw was darkness, punctuated by flashes of fleeting images, too quick to grasp, too blurry to decipher. John's gentle voice pulled me back from the brink.
Hey, easy there. Just take it easy. Sheriff Blake will be here soon. He'll figure everything out.
His words felt hollow, their promise of safety ringing false in the face of my own fragmented memory. A chilling whisper echoed in the emptiness of my mind. They're still out there. Who were they? Where had they taken me? And why couldn't I remember? These were questions that hung heavy in the air, unanswered and ominous as the shadows of the approaching storm. Yet the air hummed with the approaching storm, the distant rumble an unsettling counterpoint to the pounding in my head. John's hand stayed on my shoulder, a grounding presence in the swirling vortex of my confusion. His eyes, crinkled at the corners from concern, held a question I couldn't.
Do you recognize anything? Feel like you've been here before?
I shook my head, the movement sending fresh waves of nausea rolling through me. My past felt like a locked room, the key lost in some forgotten corner of my mind. All I had were these flashes, Fleeting glimpses of a dark car, panicked screams, and the glint of a blade under the dim glow of a streetlight. The sound of approaching sirens cut through the oppressive silence. Their wail a siren song of both hope and apprehension. Sheriff Blake appeared from the trees, his broad frame filling the path like a protective, his eyes, usually warm and kind, narrowed as he took in the scene. Me, bloodied and dazed, John, his firefighter's jacket slung over one shoulder, and the unsettling quiet of the storm-laden wood.
John, what have we got here?
John explained what little he knew, his words echoing the hollow uncertainty in my own heart. Sheriff Blake listened intently, his gaze flickering between us, searching for something only he could see.
Head injury, ESM pupils are dilated, memory loss. Could be anything from a bad fall to...
To what?
Rashun to the word to foul play. Miss.
I don't know, I whispered, the admission like a shard of ice slicing through my already numb heart. The storm broke then, unleashed with a fury that mirrored the turmoil within me. Rain lashed down, stinging my raw skin and washing away the remnants of blood from my hands. My head throbbed in time with the thunder, each clap a fresh echo of the forgotten screams. Sheriff Blake took charge, calling for backup and securing the area. John stayed close, his hand a constant tether to reality. In his eyes, I saw a reflection of my own fear, a shared uncertainty that hung heavy in the air. As the hours stretched into an eternity, the paramedics arrived, their white uniforms stark against the dark canvas of the forest. My memory remained an empty canvas, each attempt to remember a futile brushstroke against the void. The doctors did their best, stitching my wound and running tests, but their faces held the same unspoken question that haunted me. Back at the sheriff's station, the fluorescent light seemed to amplify the throbbing in my head. Sheriff Blake questioned me gently, his words circling around the events I couldn't recall, and the dark car, the screams, the glint of metal, each phrase a pebble tossed into the murky pond of my amnesia, sending ripples of fear outward. But there were no concrete answers, only dead ends and frustrating gaps in my memory. Each new revelation felt like a fresh blow, leaving me reeling and disoriented. As dawn finally broke, painting the sky with streaks of bruised purple and orange, a new lead emerged. John, the ever-present firefighter, remembered seeing a similar car parked near the edge of town a few days prior, a dark sedan, its windows tinted, blending into the shadows, hope flickering like a fragile flame ignited in my chest. A lead, however slender, was better than the suffocating darkness of my amnesia. Maybe, just maybe, it was enough to piece together the shattered fragments of my past, to reclaim the life stolen from me in the depths of the... But even as the sun chased away the shadows, a chilling truth loomed in the back of my mind. Whoever had done this was still out there, lurking in the unknown corners of my past, and until I remembered, days bled into weeks, an agonizing blur of hospital visits, police interviews, and endless dead ends. My physical wounds healed, the scar above my temple a stark reminder of the missing pieces of my life, but my memory remained fractured. Sheriff Blake worked tirelessly, chasing every lead John provided. The dark sedan remained elusive, a phantom gliding through the shadows of the town. Each night, the echoes of my forgotten screams haunted my dreams, leaving me waking in a cold sweat, clutching at the tattered edges of fleeting memories. One bleak afternoon, a breakthrough arrived. Sheriff Blake, his face etched with a grim determination, entered my hospital room. A witness had come forward, a young boy who claimed to have seen the dark sedan parked near the edge of town on the night of my disappearance. He recalled a woman, bruised and bloodied, being forced into the car by two figures. The description matched my injuries, the fear etched on my face reflected in the boy's wide eyes. Hope, long dimmed, flickered brighter in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, this was the thread I needed to unravel my forgotten past. Following the boy's recollection, Sheriff Blake led a raid on a ramshackle warehouse on the outskirts of town. The scene that greeted us was grim, a makeshift trafficking operation, abandoned in haste. Fear ran cold in my veins. Had I truly been caught in such a web? Was I meant to be sold, transported across state lines, to disappear into a life of fear and servitude? But amidst the chaos, we found clues, discarded iCards bearing unfamiliar names, medical records hinting at forced sedation, and, most crucially, a partial license plate number matching the boy's description. The final puzzle piece came a few days later, delivered by a nervous informant. The identity of the men behind the operation, two brothers known for their involvement in human trafficking, their reach extending far beyond the small town. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Sheriff Blake and his team planned a raid on the brothers' hidden compound. It was a tense operation, a desperate gamble against men who thrived in the shadows, but fueled by a burning desire for justice, for answers. I insisted on accompanying them. The raid was a blur of movement and chaos. Gunfire erupted, fear a metallic tang in the air. In the midst of the pandemonium, I found myself face to face with one of the brothers, a snake-eyed man with a sneer twisting his lip. He recognized me, fear flickering in his eyes for the first time. In that moment, a shard of memory pierced the fog. A cold night, the glint of a blade, the desperate struggle against two overpower figures. His face was the face of my fear. The ensuing fight was a desperate dance of survival. Driven by adrenaline and rage, I fought back, fueled by the echoes of forgotten screams and the promise of reclaiming my life. In the end, it was John who delivered the final blow, his firefighter's training translating into a well-placed kick that sent the man sprawling. The remaining brother was apprehended shortly after. Justice, though tainted by the scars of my ordeal, finally prevailed, and in the aftermath, as the dust settled and the sirens faded, I stood amidst the ruins of the compound, a survivor bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. My memories, though still pieced together, returned in fragments. I wouldn't be defined by the darkness I had endured. I was a survivor, a fighter, a woman who clawed her way back from the abyss, and in the quiet of the dawning day, I whispered a promise to myself, a promise to rebuild, to reclaim my life one step at a time.